up. You got 2 minutes, and we'll go from there. So first up, Roger Mueller.
Roger Mueller, 3210 105th Street, Southeast Stewartville, Minnesota. Commissioner Tyne, from the start, we've been professional and asking questions backed up by data. From our initial phone conversation, it was my understanding we had agreement that you were going to work directly with our group through me. Other than sending me the link from the last meeting, you have not contacted me, even though I have contacted you. And I've submitted our first issue. What we have received is minimalization of our concerns, a total disrespect from many of the commissioners along with Heidi Welsh. And I ask, how are we going to proceed to get actual answers to our questions? I will start by handing out the official response to Ms. Welsh's letter. It explains her misunderstanding of our data, how she glossed over of what are true anomalies, along with ideas of how we can partner together. And lastly, if the Post Bulletin would like a copy so they can print a fair and balanced article, I have a copy for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, well, we'll let you do this first, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, next up, Rosella Pearson. Hello.
It really pains me to say this, but this is for Commissioner Beer, who I see is not here today. The reason we walked out of the last meeting on September the 6th is because most of us are already election judges and have been through the presentation that Luke presented to you multiple times this year. Nothing that Luke presented was new to us. Furthermore, our questions were not answered and our concerns were not addressed, as we had requested on August the 16th. We do not appreciate Commissioner Beer's sarcastic and microaggression comments behind our backs. His insults are unacceptable as a county leader. And I speak to you as just one representative of over 100 people who are on the nonpartisan Olmsted County Election Integrity Committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Dan Nelson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As election judges, we understand how vote totals match from each precinct, process at the county, upload to the Secretary of State's database. This information is available to the public. Together with subject matter experts, we researched 2020 election data from Olmsted County using the Secretary of State's data. As was reported earlier, we found that there were approximately 1,800 more votes than there are voters. There's been some kind of confusion over what the discrepancy was, but we're saying the difference between the number of people who voted and the number of votes that were counted are different. Someone from the county told us this analysis is wrong, but the discrepancy remains, and there has been no effort to date to work with us to understand or investigate. If it was just me, I'd be open to the possibility of an error on my part. But people with more knowledge than I have double-checked the queries and believe this discrepancy to be real. I can imagine a few reasons for this difference, but they are all problematic. It's important to us to understand how this can happen. Therefore, I'm asking again, who is the best person to assist us in determining a reason for this discrepancy? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dave Springer.
Dave Springer, Northeast Rochester. I spoke before. I'm here on one of the items that has not been answered to our satisfaction yet. So Roger Mueller, last time he asked for the version number of the software being used on machines along with the certificates required by state statute for the machines. The response from the county attorney was, Olmsted County does not possess or maintain any of the data that was requested. There is no IT shop that does not keep records of your software versions. Like most of us here have computers at home. We all have to update them, and we have to know what version they are. Even I worked at the Mayo Clinic, and we have to know what version we're at to know if the next version is going to be compatible or not. And so how can the attorney say that Olmsted County doesn't possess it? I mean, Luke has to know, because each year he says there's updates that have to be done on the machines. How does he know that if it's not registered or collected or someone knows? So that's a little weird. Also, if you truly do not have it, why are you not following the state statute? You're supposed to be certified with the Secretary of State on the website. They're supposed to know what you have. You're supposed to certify it. Without it, how do you determine when to upgrade or what to upgrade? How do you set up your recovery processes for system failures? We don't want system failures when we're voting, or even during the test times when Luke's running through the process, right? You'd have to rebuild it, and if you don't know what version it's at, where do you start? So how do you justify spending over $300,000 over 3 years and know what you are purchasing? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think the next person is Jim. He's got handwriting like I do. Is there Jim?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your service, and thank you for allowing me a little time to speak with you. My name is Jim Kaczmarzinski. That's probably why you couldn't read it. I have a hard time. I'm 39-year Rochester resident and a small business owner. I'm also a voter in Ward 1, Precinct 10 in Rochester. In a previous meeting here, Luke Turner mentioned that the county attorney chose to make the addresses on the return postcards private. Well, there is no private information. I can Google any person in here or anywhere and get their addresses, or buy a mailing list, or use the available political party canvassing applications that show information along with voting information. We simply want to check for any human error that can and does happen during data entry. Thank you again for your time and service.
All right. Ray Hicks.
Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity. I am Ray Hicks, and I've lived in Rochester 45 years now. I want you to know that I received an email from election manager Catherine Smith back in September of 2020. It asked me if I would like to serve on the ballot board. I replied in less than 24 hours that I would like to do that. I did not hear for a day, 2 days, 3 days. It dragged out until 8 days later, I sent her another email, told her I hadn't heard, I'd like to hear, I'm still interested, I'd like to be on the ballot board. I never did get any reply. Now, Luke Turner has mentioned advertising for absentee ballot positions. All 4 of the GOP election judges that were hired to process the absentee ballots in 2020, they got hired after a lawsuit was fired against the county because there were concerns about what was going on then, you know. If these positions are advertised, I'd like to know why the same 4 GOP election judges used on the ballot board in 2020 were the ones used again in the May primary of this year, in the August primary of this year, and the same ones that are lined up to be used on November 8th in the general election. Furthermore, I'd like to know why did Luke Turner tell one of these judges that it is just easier to hire the same people than to advertise and consider others for the position? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Westland.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak again. 2 sessions ago, when we met here, I asked whether Olmsted County was going to shred the ballots from 2020, and my question was just, are you going to shred the ballots? And of course, the requirement under law is that the ballots be maintained for 20 months. And so in September, we come up, I think, on the anniversary of that. I'm not sure about my timeline, but we are, August to September, we're in the rough field where it's a question. So my concern was then, are we going to shred the ballots? And I communicated with county commissioners asking not to shred the ballots, please. Please don't shred the ballots just because some people want to, verify a few things about signature cards and whether things match. But however that process would go forward, the reply, and I'm not here to call out that individual, but the reply to my email was essentially, we follow the law and we're going to shred the ballots as required, or to that effect. And my reply was may, in inverted quotes, not must, in inverted quotes. So I was just saying the law stipulates that, but Secretary Simon wants you to save the ballots for 20 months and then you may shred them. But whereas there are considerations, why not? There's questions. Why not just keep those ballots on hand? It doesn't cost a lot to keep them in storage. So my question today is, by the way, that person apologized and they said they had indeed checked out the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. It was, in keeping with the way that I had framed it in my email. So there was an apology and a thanks, and I think that's great from a person in government. That's terrific. And so have the ballots been shredded? Am I out of time? Is that the beeping?
I think that's the
Is that the
beep.
beep? Okay, so have the ballots been shredded? That's my question. So.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else outside of this topic that would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call the meeting order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, first item up is the consent agenda. Approve the September 6th County Board minutes. Approve the federal medical assistance percentage grant for the Crest Mobile
Mr.
Crisis.
Chair?
Oh, did I screw
I
that up?
believe we have volunteers.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have volunteers.
Oh, we have volunteers.
Yeah, that was on there. Well, all right, we'll hold off on the consent agenda. I'll go to volunteers. Let me find that page. All right, so first volunteer is Valmek Patel, who I believe is online. And this is for the Public Health Services Advisory Board. Hello, Valmek. So if you could introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll make a decision and we'll reach out to you. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Sorry.
You're muted.
Oh, that's it.
Oops.
Now we lost you altogether. We'll wait. Oh, you still can't hear
You're
you.
still muted. Well,
Yeah, but it says he's muted now, but I think he wasn't muted before. So.
it didn't show. Well,
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, a couple times I've had trouble when I've tried to come in remote.
sure.
Maybe that if
Log out and come back
it
in.
goes out, comes back in, we'll have a better connection.
Mike, if you can hear me, what we're going to do is ask that you log out and then log back in, and we'll move forward with Sylvia Oliver. Sylvia's here in person. Hello.
are you muted?
So I was petrified of Zoom, so decided to arrive in person. My name is Sylvia Boyack-Oliver. I'm a resident in Rochester for 10 years. Thank you so much for having me. What else can I tell you?
Maybe tell us what your interest is in the Public Health Services Advisory Board.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So for every day, my job is being 1 to 5 Life Executive Director. And we sort of live as we preach. We really believe strongly in there are some injuries that can be prevented. We really believe in medical evidence-based classes. So we understand, well, I understand that COVID took a lot of public health resources and times, but I see every day there's people living with Parkinson's, people living with Alzheimer's, people living with cancer, and those are the area of interest, and this is what basically I help every day, people to manage their pain, manage their everyday life, manage their mental health, and that's my interest. I want to share my experiences and just make sure that those voices are being heard.
That's great. Any questions? No? Well, thank you for your application. We'll get back to you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sylvia.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, is Velmic back online? Oh, there, can we hear you now, Velmic? Let's give it a try. Looks like you're frozen. No.
Is he still muted?
Other people online can hear him.
Is that right? People online can hear him? So this might be on our end.
Can hear what we cannot? Interesting.
Hey, we're still not hearing you, but
I am interested in this position because, first and foremost, I do like to donate my time to the community and help improve systems that we live in. And in addition, I'm in part of my personal passion. And so I am attempting to help further in other healthcare services by leveraging technology as best can be. And in addition, I was involved in the rollout of technological overhauls at my former employer during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I realized that there is a lot of work to be done, and I'm hoping that I can provide a lot of insight and input that's useful.
okay. All right. Well, we have the ability also to read your background and your experience, and I appreciate that. That helps considerably.
That's fair, yeah. I think we got most of what we need to know from the
Any
write-up.
Any questions? All right, Velmic, thank you for applying, and we'll get back to you soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Heard that first. Okay, now we'll move forward with the consent agenda.
No, we have Nancy McCoy.
No, we have one more, don't we?
There's one more.
Thing?
Was there one more?
Nancy
No,
McCoy.
I'm sorry, Nancy is
Nancy
not going to
McCoy.
make it this time. I was updated on that,
Well,
so.
Mr. Chair, let's just hope that when Mr. Patel joins the meeting, that he's not coming in virtually.
Yeah, we'll want to
Yeah.
make sure. Although the problem might have been on our end more than anything, I don't know.
Who
All right,
knows?
so we've already called the meeting to order. We'll start with the consent agenda. Approve the September 6 minutes. Approve the FMAP grant for the Crest Mobile Crisis Team. Approve the FMAP grant for the Crest Adult Mental Health Initiative Program. Adult Mental Health Health Initiative Grant and Olmsted County Community Supports Programs Grant. Supporting Operation Greenlight for veterans. Approve Rochester Area Foundation housing contract. Establish and approve the 2023 market price for solid waste. Winona County, Olmsted County Professional Services Inter-County Agreement. Approve the final plat for Woodlands Valley Estates. Approve gambling permits for Viola Gopher Count. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next up, they appoint the county surveyor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kay Beniak, Physical Development. I am here to introduce our new addition to Public Works team, our county surveyor, Eric Stennis. He'll give you a little bit of background about himself, and then I believe Commissioner Tyne, you will
We'll do the oath.
do his oath. Well, yeah, do his
Okay.
oath. There you go.
Thank you, Kay. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Can you stand right in front of the mic? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Kay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Really great to be here. My name is Eric Stennis, new county surveyor, eventually, after the appointment. Born in Winona, raised in Rushford. Worked the last 12 years up in Buffalo for Wright County in their survey department. Was hired here just a few months ago, started last week. I'm married to my wife, Catherine, who might be in the back there. We live in Kutzke Park, and I'm really excited to start working for the people of Olmsted County. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, I get to play the role of the judge, so if you raise your right hand and repeat after me, we'll go from here. I, Eric C. Stennis,
I, Eric C. Stennis,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of the office of Olmsted County Surveyor
the duties of the office of Olmsted County Surveyor
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Okay. Next up is adopt the proposed Housing and Redevelopment Authority levy for the year 2023. Someone presenting on this? Dave's online.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair,
Good afternoon.
members of the board. Dave Dunn, Housing Director. Apologize for this. I thought this was on the consent agenda, so I made an error. But was listening in, wanted to just jump in. The HRA levy is being approved today for 2023. The HRA levy has been maxed out since 2019 at 1.0185% of the estimated market value of property in Olmsted County. We anticipate that continuing for 2023, and the levy would go from approximately $3.9 million in 2022 to $4.5 million in 2023. I'll stop now, and if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Are there any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Good.
Nice job. All right, next up, adopt the proposed property tax levy for the year 2023.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm just gonna come up here a little bit easier. For the record, I'm Heidi Welch, the administrator here at Olmsted County. Mr. Chair, just a couple of slides here for you. Claire, if we would just, yep, there you go. Couple of options that staff have prepared as you think about what you want to set that levy at for the max levy for 2023. We've given you three different options. Column A is 4.4, column B would be an increase of 5.9, and column C would give you 7.4% increase. That next line is what it feels like. In other words, what is that growth rate, what is that increase minus the growth rate? So it's just takes the growth rate into account. The levy amount there under the three options. How much would remain after we take out the base? That is for our listening and viewing audience. The base is everything we need to continue with existing programs. And then underneath that, approximately, this isn't a final, but approximately what you could expect in a recommended budget under each one of these scenarios. So you could expect about 7.5 FTEs that are not funded by levy that we need. And you'll see the big difference here is under new FTEs that are levy funded, really not space for any under the first column A, under the first scenario, about 3 that we really have an urgent need for under B, and about 6 under C. Kind of can peruse your way through equipment and building and technology maintenance, much less under A, a little bit more under B, and then C really allows us to do more of what or more inclusive of all the things that are needed. And then the other big piece are your major capital projects, and you see there that we are suggesting under all 3 scenarios that we delay the Justice Tower project. We still are moving forward with floors 4, 5, and 6, but we delay just a little bit to allow us to make it fit within budget years, over budget years, and also to make sure that we are really thinking about what changes the pandemic has created for us and what opportunities that might lead to. And then you'll see the Public Works Service Center addition, because that uses local option sales tax, doesn't affect the levy, and we would recommend that goes forward under any of those scenarios. The the Regional Public Safety Training Center, we would recommend that that proceeds under B or C. Grant Park, almost everything would be delayed under option A, but we can move forward with replacing the beer garden and some of the planned maintenance under option B. And then parks, if you choose option A, we really need to delay nearly all capital projects. Under B, we would delay the replacement caretaker house and some road improvements. We would delay the bathrooms at Zumbro. But we would be able to go forward with some of the smaller projects. OWF, or for our listening audience, that's this Olmsted's Waste to Energy Facility, that, as you know, the work that gets done there is all on an enterprise fund and it doesn't affect levy. We would recommend that all of those projects go forward. Those are all maintenance projects that would go forward under any scenario. Similarly with road and bridge projects, that funding, none of it is levy sourced, and we would recommend that they all go forward under any scenario. And with that, I stand for any questions you may have.
Okay. Matt?
Do we have anyone from the tax PLR here online?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, who are you looking for?
PRL.
PRL. I want to talk about market value exclusion that's taken place. Anybody got any answers for that one?
This is Pete Eason. Mary's not here, but I know that is an item on the legislative committee's agenda to discuss.
Okay, what it is higher evaluation, the less tax credits you get from the state. And obviously, most of us have gone through a 20% minimum valuation. That's going to affect our property taxes immensely. I just wondered if we had any data on that.
You mean as to who's affected, Matt? Or
Yes.
I mean, the legislation I know that's there is raising the exclusion. It was like 375. Now it's going to be 417. But your question, I don't know. I mean,
it hasn't happened yet.
It's quite a declining scale, and you lose it completely.
So basically, my understanding, if you go up like 40, 50,000 valuation, you're going to lose 4,000 in state
exclusion.
So that's going to really make some taxpayers' bills fluctuate greatly.
That's a good point.
So, but obviously we don't have the, Wilfredo, you got an answer for this?
Well, I don't have an answer for you, but I know we're working on doing the analysis to understand how many parcels, how many of our current citizens will be affected, because you're right, the number hasn't changed, the legislators haven't done any change, so most of us will be out of that range where you receive some benefit of
Some
the
relief from the
exclusion.
state.
Yes, so we will have an analysis presented to you at a future date to understand what the complexities of that and how many of our residents will be impacted.
Well, the public should know this is going to affect you greatly because the state hasn't done nothing yet. They're coming out good. The state's coming out real good.
Oh, yeah.
But we get caught in the middle. So watch your numbers when it comes out. So that greatly affects my thinking of what we're going to do with the levy. That's just one example that we're caught in a situation as Ken said, the state doesn't do much or less. that's gonna affect your property taxes because of the exclusion. You're in a higher category, the less number you're gonna get. That's reality.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Chair.
a property with a single-family home with 413,000 in value, then it doesn't receive any
Doesn't receive
homestead
any
anymore.
credits,
But
yes.
we'll have a presentation for you in November, on the November meeting, and then we'll do this, use the same data to explain to the community what is happening in December as well.
I know you always had examples we've done for years, and that will greatly show what's taken place.
We'll pay attention to that, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, when we prepare those presentations for the fall.
Sheila?
Mr. Chair, to kind of add to my colleagues' comments here, we also know that the legislative committees looked at some of this as well, is that for seniors, the exclusion for low-income seniors has not been adjusted by the legislature for many, many years. And as property values have gone up, more and more seniors are being affected by the full demand of their property tax, which the intention had been to protect them from some of those increases. Another factor for us to look at is that the legislature not only didn't finish the tax bill, but they didn't finish their changes to budget that would have affected many of the services we're required to provide. So we also have a little bit less revenue than we might have expected had they finished their work. So we have the issue of the tax bill not passing, the bonding bill not passing, so now we're looking at perhaps having to proceed with some of these things that we were hoping we would have some state support for, and a loss of revenue, or not a loss of revenue, but no increase in revenue for some of the services we're required to provide. So we have a multiple series of factors that are affecting our the demand on our budget and our revenue streams for our budget that are hard for the general public to really understand of how it creates this demand for levy increase, because we are required to provide services to a certain standard determined by the legislature.
Okay. Anything more for Heidi?
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mr. Chair.
All right, so what I would like to do is I'll start out here with Stephanie, and if you could just give your thoughts about the options available, maybe you could throw that back on screen. And we'll go through it, and then we'll entertain a motion. Okay, Stephanie.
Yes, Chair, I would like to adopt the 5.9% tax levy for next year.
Okay. Ken?
I also support 5.9, and my main concern, twofold. I don't want to use reserve money or the funds we put away to use for projects, one-time money to reduce this. I don't want to leave that big a hole for the next board. There'll be 4 new members. I don't want to leave them that kind of hill to climb. So I will, sort of reluctantly, agree to 5.9%.
Okay, I'll go to you, Matt.
No, I won't go there. I will do the 4.4. As I said, the market value exclusion is going to make greatly problems for a lot of citizens. As Sheila said, senior citizens can't make it up. You know, you can get a rebate, but it doesn't come close to it on that. And besides, if we go to the higher rates, I think we're helping inflation. I really do. That's more than most people do, most families do, most businesses do. I just don't agree with that principle. I would say do the 4.4, we have 5 million left in the ARP funds. We can get by a year and see how this all goes. None of these things are, again, I agree with the public works in the training center. We can get by and make that work. But again, I'm telling you, a beer garden replacement is not high on my list. It just doesn't cut it with me. Nice, but no, that can wait. So I will not be going higher than 4.4.
Okay. Sheila?
Well, you know, we have really tried over the years to keep our property tax increases as low as possible, and there have been some years we haven't had to have a levy increase at all. But we are facing a time of uncertainty for our nation's economy, our local economy, I think the 5.9% is a prudent thing for us to do because, as you see from the from the um, from the chart before us, it gives us some flexibility as demands change. We've had a lot of change in demand for services in the last year through the COVID, the impact of COVID on our economy. Um, there's just been a lot of flex, and I think having a budget that gives us that isn't to the bare bones, that gives us a little bit of reserve. Whether or not we do a beer garden replacement is a minor thing compared to some of the other needs that we have in our budget. So I'm more comfortable at the 5.9, and I do think we had pledged when we got those American Recovery Act funds that we would use them for legacy projects. And plugging a short-term hole in our budget isn't a legacy. So I would really rather leave that balance that we have because I think we're going to need flexibility in the coming year.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I think that sometimes people forget that we really are a service organization. And when we look at our budgets, partly is how are we going to maintain the services that we need for the quality of life that we want in Olmsted County, and how are we going to continue to serve the indigent with the money that we have available. And sometimes when we talk about this, and when you cut part of it, you have to determine what services are you going to cut. And from what people talk to me about, they want us to serve the homeless. They want us to have more homes. They want us to have to help people move into home ownership rather than renting. We need food for people that we haven't had, and we just gave Channel One $90,000 more money than we'd budgeted for this year. So those are the kinds of services that we need to really supply people who really are needed. So reluctantly, I would agree to the 5.9%, and that would be where I would stay too.
Okay. I'll add that I see at this point of the year we're trying to fund the decisions we've made up to this point of the year. So we've spent X amount of dollars. Now we must replenish to reflect the fact that we've made these decisions in the last 12 months. And if we don't do that, we're eating into reserves and putting at risk our financial bond rating. And we're a AAA bond rated county, and I think that's important. I don't want to make decisions and not have to pay the piper. So we've made some decisions along the way that's increased expensive. Now we have to pay for those decisions. Some of those decisions are beyond our control. Inflationary pressures. We burn a lot of fuel as a county. We buy a lot of materials as a county. We're paying higher prices than we were a year ago, and that's reflected in this need to fund our balance, our levy. So I'm going to support a 5.9. So I'll entertain a motion. Stephanie.
Public comments on this agenda?
No.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the proposed property tax levy for year 2023 at 5.9%.
Okay, can I get a second? Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Sheila?
As we do this, I think we need to recognize that our staff had calculated that we needed the 7.5% to maintain services the way they are. And that as we move into this with this level of levy, anything less than that, it means it's really, I don't want our county employees to think that we don't value them, because we do. And it's going to be very difficult to provide some of the cost of living increases. I was reading in various sources recently asserting that part of the reason government is having trouble attracting workers, and every employer is having trouble attracting workers, is that our pay scales have fallen behind the private sector. And I think our employees, we have really dedicated, great employees. We've been very fortunate. But we know that our employees get recruited away by some of the private employers right in this town. So we're adopting this budget knowing that we probably cannot do all that our employees were hoping for. We know that our health expenses for our employees are going up significantly. And so as we adopt this budget, I just want to say that it is with not with I don't know, I guess I don't have the words in my very clearly, didn't plan this ahead of time, but we really do value our employees. And we really know that we can't meet all of their expectations or all of we can't justify some of the requests that we know are before us because we have higher expense for some of the total compensation that we provide for our employees, but we do value them. And I think that's something I would just wanted to take a moment to say directly to our employees.
Sure. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, carries 5-1. All right. If there's nothing else, then we're gonna move on to board and committee reports. Matt, we'll start at your end first.
You know, Mark, we had we're gonna minus the
Deal.
F. Ken and I were there last week, and we're proceeding as this adopts Olmsted joint corrections, and we're working at the process, and I think everything will be worked out just fine. So,
great.
Fillmore's, they're ready to go on their own, and so that was what we had.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sheila.
I'm going to pass out a document that I got at our last board meeting, or one of our committees, but it relates to a discussion that was underway this morning with the equity work group of the Olmsted County Justice Coordinating Council. And that is, we're looking at how do we have a justice system that provides equity and opportunity for all. But we've received this report from our DECO group, and I think the data on this of what the number of people who have had a mental health crisis and has been served by the new Southeast Regional Crisis Center is really very, very telling. And I'm not sure that we'd all seen this data before, that it was generally available to the public, but that center's only been open a year. Look at the high volume of service. And then our community outreach team responding along with law enforcement in person or by phone for the calls that dispatch gets. It's also very telling, and we keep hearing about the need for more mental health services. Last week at the Association of Counties, we had a number of counties talking about high acuity adolescents where there's no place to place them when they're at danger of themselves or others. And we know we have some issues within our own community. We have issues with juveniles who commit crimes, and how do we have the appropriate placement for them? So I just thought that this data, in terms of 611 unique individuals assessed in the clinic, 31% of them were youth, 292 in residential care at the crisis center last year. And then when we look down to the data for the community outreach team, 54% of those being mental health calls, 10% being chemical health calls. And as we hear calls across the nation for changing the way that law enforcement responds to people in crisis, we can point to our best practices right here in Olmsted County. And I just really wanted to make sure that you saw that data. So that was, and then also from that morning work group, I know that next time we meet, we'll be hearing a report from the Public Health and Human Rights Commission work on race as a health issue. And you will find that there's a bit of congruence between what the OCJC work group is saying needs to happen moving forward within the criminal justice system with the reports that are coming to us. So we have a bit of congruence starting to happen with these different groups looking at our systems and how to make systems improvement. Then the other thing I just say is that I think maybe Commissioner Wright's going to speak to the fact that we both attended the Association of Minnesota Counties Policy Conference last week, and we were able to take many of our issues forward into that broader discussion as we work with other counties across the state around our our priority issues. So that seems to be coming together as well. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, thank you. I did, along with Sheila, attend the Association of Minnesota Counties, and basically we moved forward the same agenda items and priorities that we had for last year because nothing got done last year. And among those is the property tax exclusions that we had proposed last year to make sure that the legislature takes a look at those. And along with that is looking at the homestead credit rebates to help with the lower income seniors that are having a hard time right now to increase the amount of money homestead credit. And then also the preliminary report that AMC is looking at is on the county program aid. A county program, for the people in the audience that might not be aware of that, is the amount of money that comes from the state to help us carry out our programs. And the cities have an LGA, local government aid, and over the last 10 years, basically the LGA has gone like this, and the county program aid has gone like this, to the point where some cities are subsidized for their budgets more than they were 10 years ago, whereas the counties have been reduced in their CPA a huge amount, and we'd like that equalized a little bit to help the counties out, because the county program aid basically goes directly into levy decreases if we would get it. And if we don't get that, then we have to make it up. And we will be making the point to the legislature that the counties have mandates. They don't give the cities mandates, they give the counties mandates. And in human services alone, we have a huge number of mandates, which is about 40% of our budgets, and they don't provide the money to carry those out. So the only way that we can do that is to put that burden back on the property taxes of people within the counties, which is creating problems. So hopefully, through our legislative committees and through the help of the Association of Minnesota Counties, we'll make that point to the legislature to say that you got to fix the CPA and you have to return it to where it was, 10, 20 years ago, so that we can get some of that aid. But I should also point out that the legislature will now have at least 40 new members in it because of retirements, and so we're going to have to spend a lot of time educating a whole bunch of people about what happens at counties.
True.
Thanks.
Okay, Stephanie.
I'd just like to expand on something that Commissioner Wright said for our listening audience to keep in mind that Ramsey County did a study some years ago that 85% of our county budget is for mandated services. That leaves us, as commissioners, 15% discretionary money to do things that we think are important, such as early childhood education programs and plowing roads, which are interestingly not mandated. So just remember that we have a restriction on how much money we have to use for programs, and we have to make difficult decisions sometimes on which programs need the money most right now, or which people need the highest services right now. And I see Kate Beniak out there, and I know that most of the time human needs come before our road needs, and oftentimes that is the department that doesn't get as supported as it should. And I think what they do with the amount of money that we do give them is exemplary. So that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken.
Yeah, Matt and I have wished Fillmore a good time. we had discussion about how to, most sort of legal issues, it's a joint powers entity. So we're going to have to change a number of things. And at least one of the positive things, Matt and I, over the last all our years here, have never been big fans of joint powers boards. So maybe as this thing evolves, we might be able to do just a MOU or something like that. We're not sure yet. We're investigating it, but it would really simplify the interactions. So we, the only thing left is they need approval by state of Minnesota, which nobody worries about them not getting that. Then the only other thing worth mentioning, Micah, again, always wonderful experience. It was almost a record in how fast it went because there's just nothing to talk about. Nothing is happening. So to kind of carry on with Stephanie's people listening, if anybody is listening, hope they are, they got nothing done. And they've had the ability to call a special session. The governor is the only one that can do that. So, I mean, I would implore people out there, hold these people accountable for what they've done. They now have $10 billion plus sitting up there, and mostly now in cash. This is not money that's coming in. The forecast continues. The revenue coming in continues to exceed the forecast. Last one exceeded by about $330 million. This money just keeps sitting there growing. So let's not do anything with it, and let's just let it get eaten up by inflation over the years, right? And being facetious a little bit. But it's highly frustrating. And so I'd implore everybody out there to just hold these people accountable. The governor can do this. He can call them back to session. They didn't get the work done. When they're all sitting there together, an election is right around the corner. It provides a fairly powerful incentive to agree on things. This is my last year, and so I've been saying this kind of stuff for 20 years. You guys are probably sick of it, Matt, right? I'm sure you are. But I continue to be dismayed at the amount. And to Greg's point, they don't support us. They have consistently over 20 years taken money away from us in the form of putting more, not funding the things that we are mandated to provide. And our only source for that is the property tax levy, which is unfair. I could go on, but just a few things in the tax bill that could have been done. Social Security taxes could have made life easier for a lot of people, especially seniors. There were proposals to lower the tax rates. There's more money involved in income tax than there is in property. So put this money back in people's pockets, and they didn't do anything. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. All right, before I close with my quote, I need a motion on the volunteers. We have 2 volunteers.
Move to approve the 2 volunteers that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, my quote today comes from 1st century Roman philosopher and statesman Lucius Seneca, and he said, "Difficulty strengthens the mind as labor does the body."
So he owned the
We must be really strong.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Say that in Latin.
I get so tired of making that speech.